I think the first thing that comes to mind when a person rejects the idea of marriage is, what? No way. What about love? Love is cool. But then the question sort of becomes, what is love? Because from my view, marriage is not about love. In fact, if you ask me, marriage is one of the craziest concepts that society has ever come up with. And it's a great encapsulation of the iceberg effect. It looks great and enticing because of what you see on the surface, but when you try to approach the depth of it, it starts looking a whole lot different. So let me touch on a few reasons why I view it this way. So for starters, again, I don't see marriage as being about love. It's a legal and tax status, a contract that binds you to somebody with the government acting as the overseer. It's not a guarantee of love, commitment, or loyalty. It's a contract. I've spent hours reviewing marriage and family law documentation, and I have yet to see the word love anywhere in the fine print. So, with the way legal marriage is sold to people, I believe it's an attempt at exploiting short sightedness, ignorance, and hope. Short sightedness in not knowing what you're actually signing up for, ignorance in ignoring the statistics and the reality of the world we live in, and hope that the circumstances will never change to where you actually feel like you had to leave. I almost compare marriage to a game of attrition in many cases. It's not a matter of whether or not it's successful. For a lot of people, it's like, how long can you tolerate each other? Or how long should you tolerate each other? The intent is not to keep you guys together, it's to make it harder to leave that person. So ultimately, I ask myself, why would I sign up for that? And I just wonder where we got to the point where somebody said, I love you so much that let's get the government involved. Oh, and let's share bank accounts too, and a bunch of other stuff. That doesn't even sound good in theory to me, and yet there are some that rush right into it. As an observative guy, I think a lot of women enjoy the fantasy of something as opposed to the reality of it. And marriage just happens to be one of those things, especially with how delusional a lot of their views are when it comes to relationships and marriages and what they should look like. It's like the inner dialogue goes, I'm so great. How could somebody not want to spend the rest of their life with me? How could he not want to say yes to everything I say? How dare he take longer than a handful of months to decide? It's almost like marriage is the ultimate ego boost for a lot of women. The key word will always be expectations. What many consider to be the bare minimum is a gargantuan lexicon of characteristics that no one in their right mind can match. You're supposed to be the guy she's always envisioned and dreamed of, the guy that says and does all the right things, the ultimate guy who doesn't care about her past or any baggage she has, the guy who does what she wants but lets her do what she wants. You caught that. The guy who makes more money is taller, more experienced, smarter, more successful, more ambitious, and has a bigger network. Any combination of those things, but somehow he also views a relationship as an equal partnership. A guy who enables her to live a hyper liberated lifestyle while he adheres to archaic male specific gender roles. And all the while, she's always turning the wheels mentally like, he better match all my standards, he better keep me happy, let me bring something up to argue. He better keep making more money. He better always apologize even when he's right because of my feelings. A lot of women, it seems, have these opinions and mindsets and viewpoints towards marriage and relationships. They want guys to be, everything has to be all in one. And I've mentioned this before. It's a bunch of things that often contradict each other. It's a paradox. And many of these delulus, that I call them sometimes, are fixated on getting the best, and anything that seems less is settling. And many believe that they deserve the best just because they exist. And let's face it, once marriage happens, there's nothing to look forward to anymore for a lot of people, especially in our modern society. Newness is fun, dating is fun, the chase is fun, the honeymoon stage is fun, securing the commitment is fun, the wedding is fun. But then after that, the work and the duty starts, and that part's not fun. So I think a lot of gals are like, yeah, I want to be married. I want to be a wife. But in reality, they're thinking of the wedding, the status symbol of going from just a girlfriend to being a wife. They're thinking of the event, the attention, the fairy tale, the one, the soulmate, and the idea that they're going to get a man that will provide them the life that they want. And the problem is, a lot of ladies check out once they don't get their way for too long. And it's not always about the things you did, it's about the things you didn't do, or the things that she expected you to do, or the things that you did do and it didn't live up to how she thought it would feel for her. Another part of this is that, and a lot of people aren't going to like this, but monogamy isn't exactly a natural thing. And originally, monogamy meant one partner for life, but it eventually got changed to a more, I'll call it a modern definition of one partner at a time. So, truth be told, most people aren't really monogamous. They are serial monogamous at best. And the only reason monogamy is the norm is because it's more or less socially enforced or encouraged. Hell, you could argue that many people are practicing a, a hybrid form of informal polygamy nowadays. They're cheating, they got sneaky links, they got side dudes, side chicks, baby mamas, work husbands, work wives. You got women out here that flirt with dudes at the gym or the supermarket or on lines in the DM. You got dudes who hit them up from high school or college, whatever. And a lot of women are sharing men and fathers for their children nowadays, which is something people don't really want to acknowledge. And I feel like a marriage is just a rite of passage in many cases for them to sort of secure that first half of the security part of their relationship life, but then they fulfill the other parts of their love life in the form of random escapades, liaisons, different things like that with other people. Even them just flirting with somebody else adds to, some sort of satisfaction for them. The thing is, society has convinced everyone that they are monogamous when it's just not true. Space and opportunity with a little bit of plausible deniability are all it could take for your girl to go sideways. And even if it's not to just leave and go somewhere else with somebody else, it still applies. Checking out of a marriage is very, very common for one or both parties. And in terms of biology, I just don't believe we're wired to be attracted to one person for a lifetime, anyways, which kind of spoke to my point earlier, space and opportunity. Most people lose attraction over time, not gain it for a variety of reasons. Then you realize what you're stuck with. And again, I gotta say it, why compound that by signing a contract? One of the worst parts about the idea of marriage nowadays is the fact that you just don't know what you're buying into. A lot of these chicks are scandalous as hell. Any given woman you meet is liable to have some sort of situation going on that you ain't ever gonna find out about. Not now, maybe not ever. If a girl was moving crazy before you met her, how you gonna know? And please don't say you're gonna vet her. When you look at things objectively, the dating culture is all over the place. Hoe culture, prostitution culture, transactional relationship culture, baby mama culture, city girl culture, scamming culture, victimhood culture, soft life culture, word salad culture, weaponized therapy language culture. Low quality women are extremely common. They know how to spot a sucker they can take advantage of. These chicks are gamed up far more than they will lead you to believe, and they're looking for somebody to dump that baggage onto or the trick off of. Nobody's trying to deal with potentially damaged, ran through, struggling, bitter, and conniving individuals, especially not people like me and potentially somebody like you. She could be putting on a facade or leading you on until you foolishly lock in, and then that's when the mask comes off in many cases. In my opinion, it just amounts to a legal gamble. And in some cases, you can refer to it as a moral hazard. You're basically saying, I bet at least 50% of my future earnings, retirement plan, bank accounts, home ownership equity, 401k, and investment stakes that we will never break up. And the reason I say this is because if you're the primary breadwinner, or you take on most of the financial burden, you're actually giving away more than 50% if you get divorced. Not to mention that if you make substantially more than her, you're taking on a massive risk with your financial health. You could potentially incur her debt while losing whatever wealth you accumulated during that time period. And I've said this before, unless you have some sort of clairvoyance, I'm not a believer in that you can vet a woman. Most of the people, and I would say like 90%, just my opinion, they're just taking a chance pretty much. Everybody thinks they got lucky. Everybody thinks they picked the right one. That's just how it goes. But there's no way you're going to know who she's going to be in 5 to 10 years if you vet her today, let alone 20, 30, or 40. You're not buying something off the shelf and doing a little bit of maintenance. You're dealing with a whole nother person with their own life that you cannot be around 24/7, right? Nobody has the foresight to know what somebody will do years from now. Most people don't even know what they're going to do tomorrow. So, let alone thinking of somebody else. But I digress. At the end of the day, we live in a world where people don't keep the same job for longer than 1 or 2 years. They can't go to the gym for longer than 1 or 2 weeks. I mean, people don't stick with anything nowadays. But somehow everybody believes that they will have a lifetime relationship. And so the unnecessary risk is another factor to consider. Realistically, you don't need to be married to do anything in modern society. It's just that many have not caught up to this fact. Look, by getting married, you are giving somebody at least a 50% stake in everything you earn from that day forward. I mentioned this earlier, but if you have any plans of leveling up in life, this is not a good thing at all. Sure, there's some lovely, supportive women out there who will actually directly aid or contribute to you increasing your wealth. But then you have guys who succeeded in spite of the woman, or she was just around and he became successful. But guess what? If you're married, it all counts the same. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not in the business of giving people credit for things they didn't do. And unfortunately, marriage and family court does not care about the circumstances. Now, I know some fellas are going to be like, well, there has to be some way around it. What about a prenup? You all know something funny? Only about 10% of all marriages have a prenup. So clearly, somebody's lying. Now, maybe I'll give the benefit of the doubt and say it could be lack of information, getting shamed for wanting to protect yourself as a man, or the pressure to just trust her. Just trust her. Or, in other words, a vast majority of men are scared of making the girl mad. Typical. Now, naturally, most people only believe rich people need prenups, and that commoners like you and I, we don't deserve to get those. What do you need that for? What are you trying to protect? That's what they'll say. The reality, though, is that every marriage contract comes with a built in prenup. That's what the 50-50 thing is. Or I guess in some jurisdictions, it's called equitable distribution. Whatever the case may be, prenups are just something else to fight over in many cases. And funny enough, if you really think about it, why would you sign a second contract just to evade or protect yourself from the first one when you could just not sign the first one at all? I don't know. Tough question. Just in my opinion, it doesn't work anymore as a modern concept. I've touched on this before in other videos, but there's just too much going on nowadays. This brand new dating environment and the landscape it breeds, just leads to so much opportunity to be distracted, stimulated, interested, intrigued by other people, other things, other situations. I talk about it all the time. Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, WhatsApp, Twitter X, dating apps, you name it, it's right there. And in modern times, there's just way too much to navigate. Everything is out in the open, accessible, and at any rate, people don't spend 25 years doing anything anymore. They swap out cars, careers, living spaces, houses, jobs, schools, diets, and spouses too. And one thing about life is that a lot of things are a numbers game. So let's just say you got married today at, let's say, 30 years old. Is it reasonable to think that you're going to be with the same person for 50 years? Would you even want to be with that person for 50 years? And from my estimation, the odds of codependency, dead bedrooms, constantly in therapy or counseling, staying around for the kids, or it's cheaper to keep her situations, right? These are much more common situations than what you would really hope them to be long term. But hey, I guess a marriage can be successful for one person, but a failure for the other. There's just no telling. Finally, I just think the idea of marriage, where two people come together and build and grow and sustain, that can be a very beautiful thing. But I just don't vibe with the legal aspect. That makes no sense to me. At the end of the day, life is already too damn hard. And me personally, I don't need one more thing to be managing. I prefer my life to be as simple as possible. So if you made it this far, appreciate you as always. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like below, leave a comment, share your thoughts. Check out my newsletter where I share notes and stories and thoughts just like this directly to your inbox. And also I have my book on solitude available below. Just a compilation of my thoughts and my journal entries over the past several years. If you want to check that out, it's also below. And finally, as always, subscribe for more. Peace.